She asked for nothing but a plate of food, never realizing the man who opened the door was the ghost of her past. It began with a single knock on the gates of one of the city's most guarded mansions. Behind those glass walls lived Walter Miller, tech billionaire, heir to an empire, a man who seemed untouchable. Wealth, influence, power, he had it all, or so the world believed. On that sweltering afternoon, Walter answered his door expecting a delivery, a visitor, maybe another deal waiting to be signed. Instead, he found a woman with tired eyes and a little girl clutching her hand. Their clothes spoke of struggle. Their silence carried the weight of desperation. She asked for nothing but food and a corner of safety for the night, but in an instant Walter's flawless, carefully controlled world began to crack. Because the woman wasn't a stranger. She was someone he had once known, someone he thought he had left behind forever. And the child standing beside her, with eyes that mirrored his own, carried the truth he could no longer escape. The following morning, sunlight poured through the towering glass walls of Walter's home. To the world it was a beautiful day, but to him it was merciless. Each beam of light stripped away his illusions, exposing the hollow empire he had built, and the secret that had now come knocking at his door. The sunlight streamed through the glass walls of Walter Miller's mansion, exposing every corner of its vast emptiness. Dust drifted like ghosts in the air, illuminated by the morning rays. The house was silent, heavier than usual, as if it too remembered what day it was. The anniversary of General Miller's death, Walter's grandfather, his mentor, the only man who had ever been a true father to him. Above the marble fireplace, the general's portrait watched sternly, his uniform impeccable, his eyes unyielding. Walter lifted a glass of whiskey in silent salute, though the ice clinking was the only response. He had inherited the general's name, fortune, and mansion, but not his honor, not his peace. Walter had built a vast tech empire, multiplying the family wealth tenfold. Yet despite it all, he felt hollow. The ghost that haunted him wasn't his grandfather. It was Eleanor. She came back to him every time he closed his eyes, the girl he had loved at 22. Eleanor, with her sunlit smile and dark hair, sitting beside him on the hood of his rusted pickup. They had planned a life of dreams and struggle together, promising each other a future built on love alone. When Walter's scholarship came, it was their salvation, but it also demanded the hardest goodbye. He had promised her, "I'll come back, Ellie, I swear." And she had answered with tears. Promises are just words, Walt. The world swallows people like us. The world had swallowed him. Ambition, wealth, success, all buried her memory under skyscrapers of contracts and numbers. He told himself she deserved better. He told himself she would forget. It was the greatest lie of his life. The sharp chime of the doorbell snapped him out of his memories. Annoyed, he strode across the hall. His housekeeper wasn't there, her day off. Whoever stood outside would be dismissed. He opened the door, blinded for a moment by the midday sun, and then the world stopped. On the steps stood a woman, worn and weary, holding the hand of a little girl who hid shyly behind her legs. The woman's clothes were neat but faded, her face marked with exhaustion. Yet even through the years, Walter knew her, Eleanor, but she did not know him. To her, he was only a stranger, a fortress in tailored suits, a man far removed from the skinny boy she once loved. Her voice trembled, yet carried the strength of a mother. "Sir, forgive me. My daughter and we've fallen on hard times. I'm not asking for charity, just a chance, a job. I can clean, cook, anything. We only need a meal, and a place for her to rest tonight." Her words crushed him. Once, they had dreamed of their house, their life together. Now she stood at his door, begging to clean his for scraps. Walter's chest tightened with guilt so sharp he could barely breathe. "Ellie," he whispered, his voice breaking. At the sound of her name, Eleanor finally looked closer. She searched his face, and under the polished mask of the billionaire, she found him, Walt. The boy who had sworn never to forget her. The boy who had left. Her gasp was sharp, her face drained of color. "No, it can't be." Horror and betrayal flared in her eyes. She pulled her daughter close and stepped back, ready to flee. But it was the child who froze Walter's world. The girl lifted her face. Dark hair, familiar eyes. His eyes. The truth hit him like a hammer. Brutal, undeniable. She was his daughter. The weight of a decade crushed him. The grief for his grandfather, the guilt of abandoning Eleanor, and the revelation of a child he had never known. Everything converged in one unbearable instant. He wasn't Walter Miller, titan of industry. He was Walt, the boy who had broken his only promise. Eleanor's voice shook with fury. "I didn't know it was you. Forget what I said. It was a mistake." "Chloe, let's go." She turned, pulling the girl toward the street. But panic seized Walter. "No!" he cried, stepping forward, grabbing her arm without thinking. The touch sent a jolt of 12 years rushing back between them. "Please, don't go." "Come inside. She needs water. Rest. Just please. I don't want your help." Eleanor snapped, her voice sharp with years of anger. "I survived without you for 9 years. I don't need you now. I'd rather beg on the street than accept your pity." Her words sliced into him like knives. But then Chloe whimpered, her small voice breaking through the storm. "Mommy, my tummy hurts." The sound shattered Eleanor's resistance. A mother's fight met a daughter's hunger. She froze, torn between pride and need. Walter's heart ached as he looked at them both, the woman he had betrayed and the child he had unknowingly abandoned. And in that moment he understood. All the wealth, all the power, all the success meant nothing. This was the debt of his past, and it had come to collect, in the form of a little girl with his eyes. Chloe's small face pressed hot against Eleanor's neck, and in that instant, Eleanor's fight ended. Pride, anger, pain, all gave way to her child's need. Walter saw it in her eyes. Surrender. A mother willing to accept help from the ghost who had haunted her life. Without a word, he guided them inside, closing the heavy door as if sealing the past away. The mansion felt heavier with their presence. Dusty prints traced Eleanor's steps across the marble floors, while Chloe's wide eyes drank in the soaring ceilings and endless space. It was a palace, alien and overwhelming, a world apart from the cramped room they had called home. "Sit down, please," Walter said, motioning toward a pristine leather sofa. Clumsy in his own home, he hurried to the kitchen and returned with a glass of water for Eleanor and milk for Chloe. Eleanor's hands trembled as she helped her daughter drink, the girl's eagerness breaking Walter's heart. Around them, paintings, sculptures, and furniture whispered of wealth he had built without her. Bricks in the wall separating past from present, now crumbling. The tension deepened when Mr. Higgins, the butler, returned early. His face, normally unreadable, contorted in shock and disapproval. "Sir, who are these people?" he asked, eyes flicking between Walter, Eleanor, and the child. "They are my guests," Walter said, the word foreign on his tongue. "Prepare the guest room and some light food." Higgins stiffly bowed and left, silently protesting. With Chloe cared for, silence returned, heavy with unspoken questions. The child, exhausted, slept in Eleanor's lap. Walter watched, heart-torn. His daughter was here, yet he was a stranger to her. "We need to talk," he finally said, leading Eleanor to the library. She sat. He paced like a caged animal, words failing him. "How did you find me?" "I wasn't looking for you," she said, cold and guarded. "I just needed a roof. My daughter is sick. We were evicted yesterday. I knocked on doors all day, and no one helped. Then I saw this house. Maybe someone here wouldn't mind a little food." Each word hit him like a blow. Hunger, fear, desperation. "Eleanor." "I'm so sorry. I didn't know," he whispered. "You didn't know?" She spat. "You disappeared, Walt. You promised to come back." "I waited, wrote letters, searched, and you vanished. You built an empire and left me behind, alone." Her pain, 12 years in the making, washed over him. She paused, glancing at Chloe, and the truth landed like a thunderbolt. "When you found out?" he asked, voice trembling. "The girl, Chloe." "Is she?" "Yes, Walter," Eleanor said, voice hard as stone. "She's your daughter. The one you never knew because you were too busy becoming king of the world. I raised her alone, working day and night so she would never go hungry, so she would have dignity, the dignity her father denied her." The words crushed him. He had missed her first steps, first words, birthdays, fevers. He had been absent, a ghost in his own daughter's life. He looked at Eleanor, a woman who had carried them both, and knew he was unworthy of even standing in the same room. Walter walked to the guest room, where Chloe slept in a massive silk bed, a fairy tale princess lost in a nightmare he had created. He could give her a castle, but not a home. He could offer the world, but not the father she deserved. The road ahead was a minefield of guilt, resentment, and the fragile hope of redemption. The next morning, sunlight poured into the mansion, indifferent but illuminating a new reality. Walter, sleepless, sat in the library staring at his grandfather's stern portrait, wealth now feeling like a cage. He ordered breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, fruit, milk, absurdly anxious about what a 7-year-old might eat. When Eleanor and Chloe came down, he realized this small, unused dining room felt warmer than the mansion's grand halls. Eleanor had washed her face, tied back her hair, and faced him with the same resilience that had kept them alive all these years. Eleanor looked tired, but her eyes were firm, guarded. Chloe clutched her mother's hand, small and overwhelmed in her faded cotton dress. She seemed a little better than the day before, yet her fragility worried Walter. "Good morning," he said, his voice too loud in the quiet room. Eleanor only nodded, avoiding his gaze. She helped Chloe into a chair, one so large it dwarfed her. At that moment, Mr. Higgins entered with a tray, placing a plate in front of Chloe with unnecessary force. The clatter made the girl flinch. "Higgins, be more careful," Walter snapped. "My apologies, sir," Higgins replied, eyes cold, fixed on Eleanor as though she were an intrusion. Breakfast was tense and awkward. Walter tried conversation, asking Chloe about school and favorite colors, but she whispered her answers to Eleanor, who relayed them. A triangle of strained communication, Eleanor tense, ready to protect her child at any moment. Walter, a man of action, decided to act. He called the city's most exclusive personal shopping service. An hour later, a team arrived, carrying racks of clothes, toys, shoes, and books, a child's paradise. "I thought Chloe might need a few things," Walter said nervously, expecting gratitude. But Chloe's eyes widened in fear, overwhelmed by the opulence in strangers. She hid behind Eleanor. Eleanor's gaze swept the room, taking in the mountain of gifts and Walter's expectant face. Something inside her snapped. Her voice, calm but dangerous, cut through the room. "What is this, Walter?" she asked. "For Chloe. For you. Choose whatever you need," he stammered. She laughed bitterly, a sound of pain and scorn. "Do you really think that's how it works? You think money and toys can erase 12 years of absence, struggle, and sacrifice?" She stepped forward, voice rising. "I've mended her clothes until my fingers bled. Walked miles with a feverish child because I had no taxi fare. She cried on her first day of school because you weren't there. Birthdays with a single candle on a cupcake I could barely afford, always wishing for the same thing. A father." Walter staggered under the weight of her words. His grand gesture had become a monument to arrogance, a hollow attempt to quiet his guilt. "You don't get to do this," Eleanor continued, tears streaming. "You don't get to buy your way back into her life. If you want to be there, you have to earn it. Face the mess you made. Look her in the eye. Build a bridge, not pave a road with gold. She doesn't need your things. She needed a father, and you weren't there." Turning to the stunned assistants, she said, "Thank you, but we don't need any of this." She took Chloe's hand and walked out, leaving Walter surrounded by lifeless gifts, a statue of regret. Later, a small, weak voice called from the hallway. "Mommy?" "I don't feel good." Chloe collapsed, burning with fever. Eleanor screamed, rushing to her side. Walter froze, then instinct took over, scooping her into his arms. "Higgins, get the car! We're going to the hospital," he shouted, heart pounding. In the black sedan, Walter held Chloe, her small body frighteningly light, feverish heat radiating. Eleanor clutched her daughter's forehead, murmuring desperate prayers. Higgins drove with grim precision, tension coiling in the car like electricity. At the hospital, Walter felt stripped of privilege, a desperate father among the crowd. Money opened doors, but here urgency was its own language. He approached reception, voice low, commanding, "I need a private room. The best doctor you have, now." He didn't wait for an answer. For the first time, Wealth felt powerless. The battle to earn his daughter's trust, to redeem himself, had begun, and it would not be fought in boardrooms but in the sterile, unforgiving corridors of a hospital. Walter simply placed his black credit card on the counter. Instantly, the atmosphere changed. Nurses moved with urgency, forms were pushed aside, and a doctor was paged. Chloe was ushered into a private wing, a quiet, sterile sanctuary away from the chaos of the main emergency room. She was laid on a bed, immediately surrounded by a team of doctors and nurses, attaching monitors and drawing blood with precise, impersonal efficiency. Walter and Eleanor were pushed to the side, helpless spectators. The waiting began. They sat in uncomfortable chairs in a small, sterile family room. Adrenaline faded, leaving a gnawing dread. Walter looked at Eleanor, truly looked at her for the first time, not as a ghost of the past or an accuser, but as the mother of his child, a woman who had suffered alone. He saw the dark circles under her eyes, her trembling hands, the fierce love that had kept them alive. "This is my fault," he whispered, voice tight with shame. "Her being sick? Because of me. Because of what I put you through." Eleanor's eyes were empty, voice breaking. "It's not your fault, Walter. Children get sick, but the doctor said she's anemic, malnourished. Her immune system is weak because of the damp, cold rooms, because we couldn't afford fresh food. That part is your fault. His empire, his wealth, all meaningless against the truth of his daughter's suffering." Hours passed. Higgins appeared, silent and imposing, carrying a change of clothes. "For you, sir, and for the madam," he said, bowing stiffly. Walter waved him away, voice flat. "Just wait outside." Finally, Dr. Evans, an older woman with kind, tired eyes, entered. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," she began, names on the admission forms. Eleanor flinched but said nothing. "Your daughter has severe pneumonia, advanced. Her system is very weak. We've started strong antibiotics and oxygen. The next 48 hours are critical," Eleanor whispered, the word like a death sentence. "Critical means we must watch her closely. She's a fighter, but the battle is hard." Walter felt helpless, powerless. He could buy companies, influence markets, command nations, but he could not fight bacteria. He watched his daughter, small, tangled in tubes and wires, beeping monitors marking each heartbeat. He touched her hair, soft as he had imagined, feeling the fierce, desperate love of a father ignite in him. "I'm not leaving," he told Eleanor, voice firm. "I'm staying here with her." She looked surprised. "Walter, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," he interrupted. "I missed 7 years. I won't miss another minute." A cot was brought for Eleanor, a reclining chair for him. Calls and meetings went unanswered. The empire could wait. For 2 days they kept vigil, speaking little, communicating through shared glances, relief at small improvements, tiny victories in a child's battle. Eleanor shared Chloe's details: favorite color yellow, love of drawing horses, fear of the dark, each a precious gift to a father discovering his daughter. Higgins remained in the hallway, silent judgment and reluctant duty in his eyes, but Walter ignored him. On the 3rd day, the fever broke. "She's responding to antibiotics," Dr. Evans said, smiling. "Still weak, but out of immediate danger." A strong little girl. Relief washed over Walter. For the first time in 12 years, he saw a glimmer of hope in Eleanor's eyes. Not forgiveness, not yet, but shared relief. Later, Chloe moved to a regular room, asleep under simple IVs. Walter and Eleanor sat beside her, watching her rise and fall. "You should go home," Eleanor said softly. "Get sleep." "I am home," Walter replied, eyes on Chloe. "This is my home now, with you too." Words of truth, not money. Slowly fragile, the chasm between them felt crossable. Weeks later, their home transformed. Empty corners became playgrounds, pristine living rooms echoes of laughter. Walter struggled with braiding hair, drawing giggles from Chloe, fumbling through her endless questions about the sky, dogs, and life in a big house. Eleanor observed, wary but seeing the genuine desire to connect. Forgiveness remained guarded, a treasure unreleased. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Chloe, drawing yellow horses, accidentally rolled a red crayon across the polished floor, leaving a small mark on a Persian silk rug. Higgins appeared, eyes trained to detect imperfection, voice low and tight. "Madam," and has occurred. Eleanor flushed, shame rising. A poor intruder in a wealthy world. "Oh, I am so sorry, Mr. Higgins," she whispered. "Chloe, honey, be careful." "It was an accident, Mommy," Chloe said, eyes wide with fear, staring at the mark as though it were a wound. And in that tiny moment, the old world collided with the new. A household learning to balance wealth, love, and the fragile growth of a family finally finding its footing. Higgins placed his tray on the table with a sharp click. "This rug," he began, voice dripping with condescension, "is an irreplaceable family heirloom. It has survived generations. It requires care." Eleanor's shame flared into anger. She opened her mouth to defend Chloe, but Walter's voice cut through, cold and sharp. "What exactly is the problem here, Higgins?" He had seen the fear in his daughter's eyes. The joy drained from her face, and a protective rage rose in him. Walter knelt beside Chloe. "What's wrong, sweetie?" he asked gently. "I made it dirty," she whispered. He looked at the crayon mark, then at Higgins, who stood frozen. It wasn't dirty. You made it better, Walter said, pulling a blue crayon from the box. This horse looks lonely. Maybe he needs a friend. He drew a clumsy blue bird on the white silk rug. Chloe gasped, then giggled, a sound so pure it filled the room. Walter stood, eyes hard, facing Higgins. This house is made of things, replaceable things, but family is not. They are not guests. Treat them as such or pack your things. Higgins bowed, defeated. I understand, sir. My apologies, madam, and to you, Miss Chloe. That night, a quiet peace settled. Walter tucked Chloe into bed, reading a story about a brave knight and clever princess, then found Eleanor in the kitchen. You drew a bird on a family heirloom, she said softly. No accusation, just calm. Perhaps it's just a rug, he replied. She gave a small smile, pushing him a cup of tea. A beginning. A week later, the bond had grown. Tucking Chloe into bed, she asked, Daddy, where were you before? Walter's heart tightened. I was lost, he said, voice thick with emotion. I searched for what mattered in all the wrong places, until you and your brave mommy showed me the way home. Chloe's eyes grew heavy. Will you get lost again? No, sweetie. I'm never going to get lost again. I'm right here. He stayed until her breathing evened, then turned to Eleanor. She had heard everything. Wordlessly, they joined hands, quietly closing the door on the past and stepping forward into their shared future.